Okay, so today we're going to talk about a man who had, a literal front row seat to some of the most jaw-dropping miracles in the entire Bible. We're talking about Gehazi, the servant of the prophet Elisha. This guy was a total insider, standing right in the splash zone of divine power.
But that brings up a really thorny question, doesn't it? How could someone so close to all that holiness end up so far from it? Let's get into it and unpack the story of a man whose proximity to power became his own personal train wreck.
To really get why Gehazi fell so hard, you first have to appreciate the incredible position he was in. He wasn't just some servant. He was Elisha's right-hand man, the guy he trusted most to help run the whole ministry.
So, let's set the scene. We're talking about the 9th century BC, up in the northern kingdom of Israel. This was a really intense time, full of conflict and prophecy, and Gehazi is standing right at the epicenter of it all.
Look, Gehazi wasn't just some guy watching from the sidelines. He was an active participant. Can you imagine? He's the one handling the prophet's staff, the very symbol of Elisha's power. He was even the one who noticed the Shunammite woman's deepest desire for a son. He was deeply personally involved in these incredible miracles.
But here's the detail that tells us everything. Despite being close enough to literally touch the divine, it just wasn't changing his heart. Remember that time he tried to revive the boy with Elisha's staff and failed? That moment kind of tells you the whole story. He had the tools of power, but he wasn't being shaped by the source of that power.
Okay, so all of this is building to one single pivotal moment, the event that would just crack open the fractures in Gehazi's character for the whole world to see.
So, Naaman, this powerful general from Syria, an enemy of Israel, mind you, is miraculously healed of leprosy. And then, in this huge power move, Elisha refuses to take any payment. He's making it crystal clear the grace of the God of Israel is not for sale. But here's the thing, where Elisha saw a chance to show the world God's free grace, Gehazi just saw a missed payday. This moment puts two completely different ways of thinking on display. For Elisha, grace is a gift, but for Gehazi, it's a commodity. And with that one line, Gehazi makes his choice. He feels entitled to a cut, a piece of the action. He thinks he deserves a share of the glory, and more importantly, the wealth. He's deciding right then and there to take matters into his own hands.
And his plan? It's devious. He doesn't just ask for a tip, he lies, using Elisha's name, and he cooks up this story about needing money for other prophets. He's basically teaching this newly healed foreigner that God's gifts come with a price tag, totally twisting the image of his master and his God.
Well, as you can imagine, this calculated betrayal leads to a pretty intense confrontation with Elisha, where the true price of his greed is about to get very, very real. Elisha's judgment isn't just some random punishment. No, it is chillingly precise, a perfect, almost poetic reversal of what Gehazi just did.
The very disease that Naaman was freely cleansed of now defines Gehazi and his entire family line forever. The thing he tried to profit from has now become his curse. It is a public, physical billboard announcing his inner corruption.
And to really get how bad this is, you have to understand what leprosy meant back then. It wasn't just a skin disease. It was basically a sentence of social and spiritual death. It meant being cut off from your community and from being in the presence of God.
But wait, here's where the story takes a really strange and, honestly, kind of a disturbing turn. It doesn't end where you think it would.
We'd probably assume that a guy marked with leprosy, judged by God himself, would just disappear, right? Become a forgotten outcast. But, the Bible tells us something completely different.
That's right. Years after all of this goes down, we find Gehazi in the king's palace. He's become this kind of court storyteller, sharing all the greatest hits of Elisha's miracles with the king. And this isn't some interpretation. It's right there in 2 Kings chapter 8.
Just think about what that means. The judgment from God didn't cancel his social status. He apparently got to keep the silver and the fancy clothes, and his old connection to Elisha still gave him an audience with the king. It's a really sobering thought, that you can have public recognition and success even while you're spiritually in ruins.
And this all brings us to the final, timeless lesson of Gehazi's life. His story isn't just about him, it becomes a kind of archetype, a warning that echoes all the way down to our own time.
Gehazi's story isn't a one-off. This pattern just keeps repeating itself. Judas literally walked with Jesus for years, and he still chose silver. Simon the sorcerer saw the power of the Holy Spirit, and his first instinct was to try and buy it. It's this timeless warning about the temptations that come when you get close to real spiritual power.
So what's the bottom line? I think his life teaches us that having an opportunity or access or even a calling, it's just no substitute for character. Without a heart that's actually being changed by the power you're around, that same power can become the very thing that corrupts you.
In the end, Gehazi's legacy isn't about the amazing things he saw, it's about the choice he made. He chose greed when he was offered grace. And his story just leaves us with this question for our own lives. When we get close to something truly great, something powerful, will it transform us, or will it just tempt us?